live on the Night Owl Writers Room live stream. A little redundant there. I gotta come up with a better introduction. All right, so here we are. Welcome back. Um, and if you've never been here before, welcome. hoping, hoping people will discover this. I'm actually seeing quite a few views on Rumble after the fact, so I'm hoping people are picking this up. I'm forgetting to turn my phone ringer off. Hang on a second. There we go. All right. So, So I spent the day re-recording my not my story, but Jody Sperling's story in the Garden of End Times, and after interviewing him about it, I decided it needed more of a pulpit feel, like a story coming from the pulpit in a little whitewashed church in the middle of the Midwest. So I gave it my best try at a preacher voice. I gave it a little bit of a lilt, a little bit of a fire and brimstone kind of a voice, and, I think it turned out well. It turned out, well, certainly better than what it was. Before, it was just my regular voice, my regular sort of soft tone voice, which was not appropriate for it at all after I interviewed him. I discovered he wrote it to potentially be, offensive while still maintaining an air of his truth, if I got that right. Anyway, I'll be posting, my interview with Jody on the podcast and on YouTube, um, as soon as I get the story up. So I'm hoping to get that up tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Just have to lay in the sound effects and music. And I already got to start on it with the other version. Just need to finish that up. All right. So that's one thing. So I need to get the podcast going. I also have my other story, Dreams of Her, ready to record. I just need to get that recorded, but I'm just frantically scrambling to get ready for this Printers Row Literary Festival. So basically, what we've got here, let me pull this up here. There we go. So this is the event, right? The 39th annual Printers Row Lit Fest, and this is downtown Chicago. They've got a lot of stages and presentations, tons of books for sale, lots of stuff for the kids and stuff like that. And so I'm going to be there with Jody and our friend Christopher Talon. It's funny because I call Christopher a friend, but we've only ever interacted over X, Twitter. So it'll be fun meeting him for the first time. He's quite a character. He's got his own podcast. Check that out when you get a chance. You know what? I'm trying to figure out what it was. What was his podcast? Let's do a quick search. Christopher Talon podcast. Author of Switchers. Yeah, a podcast for creative people. Is that what he calls it? Yeah, a podcast for creative people. I thought that was just a description, but that's actually what it's called. So check that out. He's got some interesting guests and stuff. He's been doing it for a while. He's up to 114 episodes. Holy cow, he's got me beat. Um, but and it's one of those conversations with creative people. I love those podcasts. He does a great job with it. Jody does a lot of interviews too, but he's been doing a lot of motivational monologues, I'd like to call them, on his podcast, Becoming a Household Name. He's over at Jody Sperling at Jody J Sperling at Substack.com, and he's got lots of cool topics here. Perfecting your pitch. Here's an interview with Ty Allen Jackson. Uh, and yeah, he's got a lot of interesting topics here. So this is where he's going. And it's quite an evolution on his podcast. I've been following him almost since the beginning because I was an early guest of his. And he is, if you are a writer and you are trying to find ways to sell your books, listen to this podcast. Go back even to the back episodes. They're pretty much evergreen episodes because he doesn't do anything that like is hinges on the moment. Um, but he has gone through all sorts of different methods, trials, workshops, techniques, programs, and so forth to try and market his book. He's been successful at getting it in libraries. He's been successful at selling at shows, which is how I got into that. And so we have been doing a lot of work together in that regard. And so we will be at the Printers Row Literary Fest this coming Saturday. So it's Saturday the 7th and Sunday the 8th between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on, let's see where it is, on the streets of South Dearborn from Ida B. Wells to Polk, come rain or shine. So they've got tents, so we won't have to worry about our books getting wet. And, hopefully it's gonna be good weather. You know what? Let me just check the weather real quick here. Where's the weather forecast? Let me see if I can pull this up. See if we've got good weather coming here. Hang on. Weather, weather, weather. Where are you? See full forecast. Bring this down here. Okay, so here's the full forecast for Saturday and Sunday. Look at that. Sunny all day. 64 and 74. Perfect. Perfect weather for heading out to Chicago to do that. I believe too that let me see here. I think this is it was a Taste of Chicago. I think it's the same weekend. Am I wrong? Taste of Chicago. When is it here? Where are you? Taste of Chicago. Let's just see here. Taste of Chicago. Last year was at the same time, and so there was like some spillover from there. What are the dates? Oh, Tastes of Chicago. We don't want Taste of Chicago. We want Taste of Chicago. Taste of that I kind of like cheated on that. Let's see here, Taste of Chicago, September 6th through 8th. Yeah, so if you're coming down for the Taste of Chicago, stop by the booth. We are going to be actually on. Let's see if I still have this open here. Where's my PDF reader? Hmm. That's not the one. Take that back. It is. Well, I'll pull it up later. What did I do with that? I thought I had it still open here somewhere. Is this it? No, that's not it. No, I closed it. UPDF. There it is. Okay, let me see if I can pull it up here. There it is. So this is the map. So this is Dearborn, and on the south end of Dearborn, we scroll this over here, where it intersects with Polk here. You've got this little booth here, QQ. That's where I will be on the south side here, facing the Dearborn Street Clock Tower, right in between the Plymouth Court stage and the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation stage, right by a book signing here too. So hopefully we'll get a lot of traffic because as you know, when I did it, I walked all up and down, and then I came down here and walked around through all this stuff too, and came back. So there are a lot of opportunities to see that. They say 100,000 people show up. If I can sell to 100 of them, I'll be happy. 100 books, that's my goal. So actually, if I sell 2 books to 50 people or 4 books to 25 people, that'll work for me as well. Oh, and I also got. Let me see if I. Hang on a sec. I'll be right back. Sorry, that was rude of me. So I've got a couple things to show you guys. So this is an example of one of the pocket books I'm selling. So it's a little 4x6-ish type of book, and you can see it's got a bunch of stories in there. And this one is the Fairy Tales for Insomniacs with my stories Sweet Revenge, Goldie, and Ruby. As you can tell, Goldie and Ruby are takeoffs on Goldilocks and um, Red Riding Hood. Sweet Revenge is more of a sequel to Hansel and Gretel than a rewrite. Yeah. So what I was doing with these is I've got the book in here, and then right up in the front here I've got facing page ad for the podcast. And then for each story, I did this thing here too, where you can read the story or use the QR code to listen to the story. So I got that going on there. And then in between the stories, I put ads for my other things here. So here's an ad for my thrillers in between. And here's an ad for my paranormal series right there. So, I should probably make this bigger. Let me go back up to this. There we go. You can see that better. So there's the ad for the thriller series. And then at the very, very end, one last little call to action to, subscribe to the podcast and check that out. So this is a book I'm going to be selling for $5. I still have my preacher voice. I'm going to be selling for $5. I'm going to be selling these for $5, 5 for 20, 15 for 45, right? 15 for 45. No, 15 for 5 for 20. Oh yeah, there's 15. So 5 for 20. So yeah, 15 for 45. So if you buy all 15 of them, they're only $3 a piece. But, and I'm also going to be debuting my new short story collection. Let me pull it back here. The Charlatan's Conundrum and Other Bedtime Stories for Insomniacs by Rich Hosick. So here's the back of the book there. You can see I've got my bedtime stories for Insomniacs little ad there, my picture. And so this is 26 of the stories from the podcast. So these are 26 of the first 28 stories. There's 2 stories I did not include in the collection because I didn't feel like they really were representative of the podcast. It was when I was still getting started, trying to find a voice, trying to find a format for the podcast to get that going. So first time this book will be available will be at the fair. And like my other books, if you buy the paperback, you will get the audiobook and the ebook for free. And in fact, with any purchase at the book fair of my books or Jody's or Christopher's, you'll get a free copy of the audiobook of The Charlatan's Conundrum. So that is going to be really exciting because really hoping that will help feed the podcast and get things going. It was kind of interesting. I was noticing on my YouTube channel where I've got the podcast feeding here. Let me pull that up for you guys. YouTube. And let's look for Rich Hosick. There it is. There's that one. Okay, here we go. Whoops. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so here it is. So this is my YouTube channel. This is my stories. And some of these are like pretty light views, but then back here, I got like 113 views on this one, 178 views on this story by my brother. The novel views, not so much. Let's pull up all the videos here and see if we got any that are pretty big here. See, some of them are like 3 views, 1 views, 2 view, and stuff like that. And a lot of some of those views, I think, are probably they're not me because I don't really listen to them on there. But so like this one here has got like 3 views or no views 3 months ago. No views, 1 view, 1 view. But a couple of them had like a couple hundred views on them. I'm wondering where did that come from? Why did I get that? Here's what this one's. Oh, so this one is. It's an old student film. It's kind of a cute thing to have up there. So normally, I get like, God, not even most of them don't even have any views on here because I don't really promote the YouTube podcast. I find it difficult to listen to podcasts on YouTube or audio. I don't pay for the premium, so when you're listening to it on your phone, you can't like turn it off the screen and just listen to the audio. If you're listening to like a podcast on there, you have to have your screen on. So I listen to my podcast on a podcast app, and I've been using. Oh gosh, this was like facing the wrong way. Did I screw that whole story up? Let's see here. No, it looks okay. I was wondering if since I had my mic tilted, that I was gonna, but get like this because it's stereo here. one track was going to be louder than the other, but it looks okay. This is here. This is the what I was working on earlier. This is the recording of In the Garden of End Times. So anyway, so I just thought it interesting that these two stories had like over 100 views each. And this was though, I think this was during the judging for the podcast award. So maybe people were coming here to listen to this from the podcast awards. Could be. So that's a good sign that people were listening to that for the podcast awards and so forth. So got that going here, and then just come over here to Rumble. Rumble.com. Where's I'm not signed in, that's why. Okay. Sign in. Oop, invalid username, huh? Sign in with Google. Let's try that. Okay, let me close that and we come over here. Rumble. Jeez. Typing like I have sausages for fingers here. Night Owl Writers Room. Here we go. Yeah, look at that. So there's the podcast on Rumble. And if we go here and look at the videos, where's the videos? This is the Night Owl Writers Room. You can see I've got 20 views, 26 views, 35 views, 41, 47, and so forth. So people are finding it and watching it, and going back and watching old ones too, which is interesting. The live read of In the Garden of End Times got 47 views, so that's kind of cool. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's the best thing for me going forward here or what, but there we go. So the the things that I am doing to get ready. So I am obviously packing up books to take there. These just came the other day, so I'm still getting these all set up here. The cover is not quite what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. My original concept for the cover was to have a face on there, and let me show you the inspiration for this if I can find it here real quick. No, that's not it. Let's go here back to this. Bedtime stories. One cover. And where is it? There it is. So this face here, I wanted to have like this style of face, but oh, you can't even see it. Let me share my screen. I wanted to have this style of face, right? This kind of dramatic thing going on here. Wanted to just not with the lose the wand in the smoke, but just that sort of face, and have them be a little bit more confused. And then take that face, put it on that background there instead of the hands shuffling the cards. And I thought that would be a winner and cover, but I just could not find an artist in time to realize my vision. Now I can do some stuff, but this is beyond my skills. It would take me much longer than it would be worth it for me to pay somebody to do it. So, if you guys know of any artists who are capable of doing some vintage poster art, kind of like that, then send them my way because I am still going to do that cover. All right, so I've got like a bunch of copies of this book with this cover, but as soon as I get the other cover done, I will switch the covers out and switch to that one. So these will be collector's items. So if you come down and get it signed at the book show, you will have a very limited edition version of that book that is a cover design that I'm not crazy about. Oh, there we go. I didn't even see the questions here from York. Do you have a science fiction book for $5? Yes, I do. In fact, I've got 3 different science fiction topics. I've got science fiction for insomniacs. I've got alien invasions for insomniacs, and I've got artificial intelligence for insomniacs. Oh, 4 of them. 4. I got time traveling for insomniacs. I have a lot of science fiction on there. I didn't really even realize it until I started putting all these together how much science fiction I was doing. Um, and then let's see, I didn't know you had your podcast. Yes, I do have my podcast on YouTube, and you feel that Rumble is a better site for podcasters. You know what? Um, I'm using the Rumble Studio tool. I haven't tried the YouTube version. I'm using it for a very specific reason because it's new. It's new and it's not complicated. Um, and obviously, I'm getting more traffic on. I say that, but let me just check to see what's going on with the YouTube channel here, if I can. Hang on, let me see if I can find it real quick. YouTube. I haven't even checked to see if I got any views on the I know writers room here. Let me bring this over. There we go. I know writers. I know writers room. Videos and no views. No views on YouTube. No views, 4 views, 1 view. So I'm getting more views on Rumble. So that's interesting. So, I have heard that Rumble, if you're starting out, might be a better choice, but, because they're looking for people to create content for them. But I'm not so sure about that. I mean, YouTube obviously has the more traffic, and, we'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, here, let me come back here to show you my big beautiful face. I'm gonna do both, right? It doesn't cost me anything more to do both. I also am live streaming on X, of course. Um, I don't know how to track interaction there though. Let's see here. Let's come to my profile and see if there's any comments under the live stream. And there's not. There's 9 impressions, but I don't know. I don't know if you can tell if anyone's actually watching. Oh, there's no. There says there's 4 views. Okay, cool. So there's a few people who may be tuning in or may have just tuned in for a second or two and said, "Oh, I don't need to listen to this guy," or perhaps they come back later. But putting it out there, it's kind of like my approach to writing too. I put my stories out on the podcast. I put my stories on Medium in a online version, a text version, and then I am putting them out in books too, in anthologies, right? So wherever I can, I am just slamming these stories out there and not looking to make money off of the stories per se. The stories, I always feel like the short stories are kind of like the appetizers to my novels. If I can hook people with a story, because you only takes 20 minutes to hook you with a story, even less if they listen to it on a faster speed. But if they find a story that they like, you may have a writer, you may get a fan. They subscribe to your newsletter, and then they start getting more information about the stories you're doing. And when you're ready to put out a book, and you give them a special for the book, at least this is my plan. So that is the goal with the short stories, is to create these little pocket books to they're not very thick, but about 50 pages each. And I don't know. I just have a feeling that to me, $5 feels like a lot for a little book like this. But you look at the price of even little tiny paperbacks, thick ones are like, 15, $20, right? This book costs $20, right? You may not want to spend $20 on a book, but hey, maybe you'll spend $5 for a few stories in a genre that you like, that entertains you. And then you can flip through that and you'll see all the different ads for my other books and stuff like that. You'll see the QR codes. Maybe you'll check out the podcast. Maybe you'll subscribe to the podcast. Maybe my downloads will go up and I'll get into the Apple charts, and that'll be fun. So that's the plan there. And then the other thing I'm going to be doing on X is I normally will, promote my podcast episodes when I get a chance. And the way I do that is through the X writers lists. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So, oops. on X. There I am on X. Let me go back in the presentation mode. See, there we go. Okay. I'm going to get rid of that. So let me come over here to my replies. And you can see, here's one example here, where somebody was like posting this little clickbait post, like I like to call it. These questions to try and get engagement. And look what they did. They got like 265 views on this, 3,000 likes, 664 reposts, 3,000, 3,500 replies. And so I added this. And so it's like, you wake up to this. What will be your first words? Well, I happen to have a story about a guy who wakes up believing that he was abducted by aliens. So I'll put my story out there in this, and you click on this, and it takes you straight to the story on my podcast. I said you click on this, and it takes you, there we go. Takes you straight to that story. You can listen to it right away. See it. And other times I will do this when there are what we call writer's lifts, right? We have to go back a little bit here. I haven't been doing it recently. You got a lot of food related posts too that I follow, obviously. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff from York. Okay, there's my logo. Here we go. So here I've got my book here. So someone posted about that. Here, let's see here, audiobook version of that. Let's see, I haven't done a writer's lift reply in a while. Maybe we'll do one live. That'll be fun. Let's do that. Let's come back to home here, and let's find a writer's lift. Happy Wednesday, book lovers, writer's lift. So post books and stuff like that. So I've got a list of what I call lifts, writer's lifts. And so I will grab the lift here, copy this, and come back over here, and then I'll like the post. If it's someone who doesn't have a lot of followers, like this person has 37K, I'm not going to repost because they're probably getting a lot. They got a lot of reposts already. I'll go ahead and throw this in here. I'll post my reply, tighten it up a little bit here. See, Blueberry Poach on bedtime stories for insomniacs. That should be italics since it's the title of a show. The patch and quotes, and so I get this little writer's lift here, and then I post it. So there we go. So I've got these sort of little blurbs for each episode with a link to the episode in the writer's lift, and then they'll repost it hopefully, and I'll get that added exposure. And that's how I built up my initial audience for this, and that's how I built up my initial following too. So I'm a little over 8,000 followers on X. I haven't really made a big push to get more followers. In the beginning, I was like spending, maybe a couple hours a day on when it was Twitter. I think it was still Twitter at the time. Just getting involved in the writers community, just responding to posts, doing my own writers lifts, and also responding to other people's writers lifts, and getting all that stuff done. So that was a pretty good thing to do here. So let's see here. Here's another one. Hey, writers, only 1,600 follow. I'm not even following him yet. So this is a good chance here. I'm going to go ahead and follow him like that, repost. And then let's go ahead and put another lift there. So I'm going to go here, grab another one. I'm going to do unseen for this one here. I'll post it back here. There we go. And it pulls up my little card for this. So this is kind of cool, actually. So this card here gets generated dynamically based on the URL. So I've mentioned before, I'm a web developer myself, so I'm able to do these tools for myself. And basically what I do is this, when you go to this URL, it grabs season 100. Season 100, episode 65, grabs the art in the title and incorporates it into this static background, and then it delivers that as what they call the Twitter card. So there's these meta tags that in every web page that Twitter and Facebook and other sites like this will look at to see if you've got information for them how to present the link. And if you've got a graphic associated with it, then it will use that graphic like it does here on X, and you can see that marketing going on there, right? So this dynamically will do that for any story that I put up. I don't have to do anything besides put the story on my podcast. It grabs all this information off the RSS feed. And so it's pretty nice for that. Now you may be asking, why is this season 100? So the reason for that is that I do all of my short stories in season 100. I do my rerun and specials on season 99. And then my books are seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 so far. The next book, 10th Ride, will be season 5. And so the reason for that is that when you some of the podcast apps I noticed will list the episodes in order of the seasons by default. And so my stories were getting buried because they were all season 1 and I had other books and stuff as higher seasons. I think I was actually doing season 1 for the stories and then like 101 for the book, 102 for the books and stuff like that. Um and we're getting there. A question from York is Writer's Lift still an effective way of promoting your podcast? I think so. I um I do believe it is, but I've also had more luck getting listens from advertising, which isn't cheap, but it's a cool way to do it. But when I was starting out, it certainly was. I did get people listening to my podcast. It wasn't a lot. I was getting maybe 20 or 30 people per episode when I first started out, which was it was kind of exciting. It's like, oh, hey, somebody's listening. I'm not just putting this stuff out here for no reason. But then I kept on pushing and pushing and so forth. And then Jody actually turned me on to this site called Overcast, which has, I believe it's just an Apple only app because I haven't seen it on. There we go, account ads. And so basically, I can buy ads on their podcast platform, their podcast app, and you can see the performance here. Now, this one is actually kind of interesting. So you see here, you can see the ads I've purchased over the last couple of years, last year, basically year and a half. Oh, a couple of years. It started in January. And you can see, like, it started off, got 35, 42. These are subs on the Overcast app. Now, yeah, I think about maybe half of them stick around. Um, but that's the performance, right? That's the metric. You pay $150 to get 35 subs. You pay $80 to get 30 subs and so forth. And you notice here, $100 for 30 subs. And you notice here that it jumps up to 91. The reason I think that it jumped up to 91 here is that I changed my logo. So previously, what I was showing here, let me pull this up here. The 10 stories, graphics was this. This was my logo. This was the tile for my podcast. And so everybody who, whenever it placed an ad, you would see that like even smaller than this, right? You'd see like a little tiny version of that. So this is what would show up on the ad, something like this little tiny thing. And you look at this and then you look at this and see which one catches your eye better. And so this one is just kind of like, fuzzy words there, but this one here, this is a graphic. What is it? That's somebody reading a book. Let me check what that is. And so that got a lot more taps and a lot more subs than my previous logo. Now it's showing the current logo here on all these. But previously it was showing that other ad. So this here, and then the thing is that, I noticed here, the first time I bought it was like $150. I said, okay, I'll try that out. But then I noticed that if you wait long enough, they lower the price. So let's go check this out here, actually. So let's see, buy new ad. Let's see what the price is for fiction right now. Oh, 340. They sold out at 340. Holy crap. Yeah, I wouldn't pay 340 for an ad there. Ooh, someone bought an ad for 340 on fiction. I wonder if it's really, and they're only promising 25 to 30 subscriptions for $340. That's like $10 a subscription, more than $10 a subscription. Holy cow. 7,000 to 100 taps. What did I get? I got 1,130 taps on this last run and 91 subscriptions, which is about the same percentage here, right? So people who tap on it, about somewhere between 7 and 10% of them will subscribe, but I got a lot more taps. A lot more taps with this logo, and so that I'm very happy with the performance of the logo. Um, I'm sure I talked about the logo before, but this logo basically is something I'm really proud of. I like took a very simple shapes, very simple colors, colors that I was already using on the podcast. Right, I had the text where this was the color of the text, and just said, "Hey, I'm just going to do that. That's going to be cool." And I think too that when you see it also on the back of my book here, right? You can see that it's like, bam. In the context of this, it like draws your eye right down to it. It says, "What's this?" Okay. Oh, fiction podcast. Let me go subscribe to that. So this is all little tiny marketing things that I'm always trying to find to do here. Um, oh, here I think do I have this on here? Let me see if I did this on this one. No, I forgot. Ah, damn it. What I was gonna do on my I was gonna on the last page of the book here, I meant to put a QR code for reviews. Because this is what I'm gonna go back and do this for all my books. On the last page, when they get to the end part, I'm gonna put a QR code there. It says, "Hey, did you enjoy this book? Please leave a review on Amazon." And they can scan it. It'll take them straight to the Amazon page, and they can leave a review. Maybe I'll put one for Goodreads as well. But that is the one of the biggest things that you can do to support an author is to post reviews. Um, when you get to that sort of like 50 reviews for a book, you're kind of like, okay, I'm getting some traction here. When you get to hundreds of reviews, then you're like going, all right, now I've got some readers out there. And when you get thousands, you know that you've arrived. I think the people who get thousands of reviews do a lot of marketing. A writer I know named Jonathan Yanez, he's a science fiction writer, he does some fantasy too. He has a couple of series out, and he has a very interesting story. He married, and one day, without even telling his wife, he just quit his job and said, "Okay, I'm going to try this writing thing." And he sat down and he wrote a book a month for a year. A book a month. Now, there's science fiction books. They're like 50, 60,000 words. Um, little formulaic, but entertaining. He's a decent writer. You read the books and you're like, "Oh, I enjoyed that. That was fun. That was a great thing. Interesting characters, great dialogue, all that kind of stuff going on for him." So certainly a talented writer. Would the books have been better if he'd spent more than a month on it? Yes. Yeah. So the lowest price on Overcast I've ever seen was $80. Um, 340 is crazy. I usually they like start at 150 and and you see it come down after a while. Let's see here, Binding Bands. So that yeah, so that they're sold out for this next month here. But yeah, normally it's like that's just crazy that they got that much money for that. Normally, what happens is they put it at 150, and then the longer it goes, they drop it down to 140, and then 130, 120 until it gets down. And if it gets down to 100, I'll snap it up. So if I see it at 100, I will buy it. That's why I don't do it every month. The other one that's more expensive, but you get bigger exposure is Podcast Addict. There we go. And so this one again, it's another app-based thing. So you're advertising on the podcast app that shows up on people's iPhones. So you're kind of like and these apps are kind of like a way to sort of take that kind of stuff and do this. Let's see if I get it here. Podcast app promotion. Do they have? Do I get to see the podcast promotion? What your podcast? So this is you put your RSS feed in here, and this one costs 250 for a month, but they guarantee about 3 times the subs as I get on Overcast. Now, that was before I was getting 90 subscriptions on my Overcast, right? So I think I ran a Podcast Addict one and a couple of them, and I got like around 80 or 90 subs, and I was like, okay, that's a lot better than this. But man, I'm wondering what my performance will be on Podcast Addict if I go ahead and do this. In fact, I think I did buy an ad there. I'm trying to remember if I did this. Let's see here. No, how do I check my ads? Let me see if I did something here. Do 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 do. I pull up my email here. All right, so yeah, so they've got a couple options here. The main banner ad is like really huge. I'm gonna take this over here. Let's see if I have anything from Podcast Addict. Podcast Addict. Mhm. Okay, now this is way back in January 2024. It looks like I paid 275 for an ad, and did they give me a link for the metrics here? I think there is some sort of link for the metrics, but I don't remember exactly where it is. Podcast Addict ads. Number one podcast app on. I actually use Podcast Addict now since Google Podcast went away. You can see I've been shopping for banners. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this is one. So and then there's another podcast app I've did that if you're looking for a place to promote your podcast is Good Pods. So Good Pods is here. You can see I've been listening to Welcome to Earth Stories on Good Pods. And this one here, uh, they're doing a major update. I'm anxious to see what happens here. But this is where I do all these, and it allows you to create a list of podcasts, right? So when I do mine, if I go to bedtime stories for insomniacs, there it is. Oh, look at that. Top 50 podcasts of the month. Holy cow. Number 13 in the top 100 indie books monthly pod chart. 30 in the top 100 indie arts. 62 in indie fiction. 65 in top 100 books monthly chart. That's not bad. That's pretty cool. Interesting. Get this badge. Let's see here. Top 50 podcasts of the month. Nice. What's this one for? Top 100. I think I put the top 100 badge on my website before, but not the top 50. Top number 13 in books because I've got a lot of audiobooks on there, so that's cool. Sweet. All right. So anyway, they also here we go. I created a list of podcasts that I like here for stories and stuff. Now, obviously, this was before I discovered Welcome to Earth Stories. I may want to update this because I think Bob hasn't been doing any stories lately. Um, but here you go. I mean, here's the guy who got me started, Scott Sigler. He he has been doing a fiction podcast for I think over 15, 16 years. He's like one of the top people. He is top of the Apple charts. He read like a lot of his own audiobooks starting out. Now he doesn't do his own books as much, but it's because he's so busy writing books. He actually wrote one of the Alien books. So the Alien series, it's part of the Alien canon. So if you see his book, it's called Alien Phalanx, and it's basically in the alien world where you see a civilization that is kind of like people who are stranded from a starship crash. Their civilization has kind of degraded over the years because they are sharing their planet with aliens, and they've learned to coexist with them. But they're like starting to realize that they can't just coexist. They have to defeat them at some point, and so they engage on a mission to go ahead and do that. So that's where that comes from. So Good Pods is interesting one to promote things. You create this list, and then you can put your podcast and other people's podcasts on there and create that list. And then you can also, rate things on here too, which is kind of nice. So I can come here to the Welcome to Earth stories. Let's see here. And yep, gave it 5 stars. You got 6 listeners here, York. Cool. And so that's a good place to get some stuff going on here. And I'm curious to see, they keep on promoting on X that they're doing a site revamp. I haven't seen it yet. But what I was hoping was to get like playlists. I would love, like on YouTube, you can create playlists. I'd love to do that for here, because even though you can come here and you can look at my podcast by season. So you can go here to seasons and see there's season 1 with this. Be nice to sort of name the seasons to be like a playlist for this is the book. So season 100 is all of my stories. I don't know why it's doubling up here. This is kind of weird. I should ask them about that. Maybe they'll fixing that in the new release. If it's still there in the new release, then I'll go ahead and ask them about that. But it's like the same podcast episode twice. But here you can see, yeah, we got so there's my 4 book seasons. This is my special season. Halloween, I rebroadcast my Halloween episode, which is really fun. It's basically a takeoff on A Christmas Carol, and the character is self-aware that that's exactly what it is. And I enjoyed it. I do this kind of stuff, and let's see, it's $2.50 per month, a flat fee on Podcast Addict. It is. I'm trying to remember what if they charge for different categories. I think so. They look at what category your podcast is in, and they charge you according to that. You don't get to choose your field in that particular case. Yeah, and York is saying a couple years ago I changed the name of my podcast. Now I have more subs. Also been on interviews, and that's helped to expand the show. Yeah, that is something I need to get out and do more next year. So now that I've got this book here, which is, the first anthology from the podcast, I can feel like I can go do podcast interviews, push the book and the podcast, because I've got a whole package of things. And then, of course, promote the mini books too. If people just want specific genre books, they can pick those up. Those are actually on Amazon as well. And it's crazy because I sell them for $4.99 on Amazon, $5. I there's a part of me that just wants to put $5 as the price instead of $4.99. But everyone says, no, people aren't going to buy it if it says $5. They need to be tricked into thinking that it's less than $5. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like a gas station's like, $4.20 and 9 tenths. It's like, okay, why don't you just put 4.21? It's like, why the 0.9 there? It's just like they squeeze that extra 9 tenths of a cent out of you. Anyway, how long have I been doing my show? I've been doing my show since, let's see. Since January of 22. This one I did in September of 2020, just as a whim. I sold this story to in this anthology here. So it was the first short story I'd sold to an anthology. He was looking for ghost stories. I said, I bet I have a ghost story. And I've been kicking around an idea for a ghost story where there's a guy working in an office and he didn't know he was dead. And so I said, can I come up with a story that'll work with that? And I started writing that story, and then it evolved into something completely different. And so the Austin Intelligence is one of the first stories I did in the podcast. I recently went back and remastered it, so it's a little bit better than the first version. The first version had audio quality problems. That was the biggest deal with it. But this is when I started, was January of 22. You can see on the January 2nd I started there, and so I've got like 66 stories now. I have all the stories here. I've got I think Jody's story is going to be 67, and then Dreams of Fur is gonna be 68. So I've got and I would love to do a story a week, but it's not turning out that way. It's like, let's see, I'm getting more than so this is the 3rd year? Yeah, this is the 3rd year already, and I should be getting to about 78 episodes by the end of the year. If I Yeah, I'm on track for that. So about once every 2 weeks, I get a story out. When I've got an audiobook, I do that every week. So that's pretty easy because I just slice it up into 25 to 30-minute segments, put it up there, and I've got 3, 4 months worth of episodes going out there. So I do have something every week on the podcast. There have been some times when I've been a couple of week lull in putting anything up there, and I'm afraid to do that anymore because I think that's when you lose subscribers, when you're just kind of stagnating. It's, you listen to the other stories, they've got a promo on there that says podcasts are like sharks. They're not moving, they're dying, right? If they don't keep moving, they die, and they can sense blood in the water. So, um, so they have this is the other stories here. So they've got they do something every week, sometimes twice a week. They do stuff, and then they've also got enough materials where they've got, like, episodes on their other stories plus TOS plus. So they've got a premium offering too, but they've been around for like 8 years doing this stuff. So they have got it. Then they got like I think there's like 4 or 5 core people who are writing and producing the stories. And yeah, how long batch recording batch I batch record all of my season, find it easier. Yeah, that's if you're for the audiobooks, that's kind of like what I do, right? So I batch record the audiobook. It takes me if I just sit down and do it, I can do an audiobook in about a week. Um, my brother's book was 130,000 words. That one took me 2 or 3 weeks to do, and I got 24 episodes out of it. I think I'm on episode 22 right now. So that one, yeah, that's almost 6 months worth of podcast episodes. So that was pretty nice, and I love that story. It's very enjoyable. I'm biased though because he was my brother, and he passed away in December, and this is my way of keeping him alive forever because the internet is forever. And it's kind of interesting to think that 100 years from now, someone may find these podcasts and listen to them. Because I don't know if you ever listened to old time radio. Old time radio is one of my passions. I listened to it a lot as a kid, and even when I was a kid, it was still old time radio. But it was uh, and shows like Jack Benny and Suspense and The Shadow and Superman and all of these radio dramas that I think are seeing a resurgence now because we see these a lot of podcasts like York's are audio dramas, and it's it's a great way to get your story in front of people because a lot of people don't have time to sit down and read a book, but they're out and about and they can listen to stuff. And so if you can do an audio drama, if you can add some premium features to it, some value adds with sound effects and music and stuff like that, man, you've got a product that people will do it. And if you find that one influencer, he likes all time radio too. If you find that one influencer who will push your podcast, it could blow up overnight. And so always in pursuit of that. But I'm hoping to get like hundreds of these out in the hands of people at the book fair. And like I said, if like, if I get a I've got 2,100 of these being printed right now. I'm supposed to pick them up in the next day or two. Um, if I can sell or maybe I'll even give away if they like buy all 4 books, I'll give them one of these for free. If I can do that, if I can sell all those books and get that done and get that out there, and people will tune into the podcast, and then maybe pass the book on to someone else, and they'll read it and they'll pass. I'm just hoping. I'm just throwing this out there because it's like I'm trying to find unconventional ways to promote the podcast. And the reason I'm finding unconventional ways to do it is because I think the conventional channels are flooded with podcasts. There's, tons of podcasts out there. I'm thank God I'm not doing a nonfiction podcast. I think we're in a lane where there's not as much competition because you've got everybody's doing a podcast. Everybody, every comedian is doing a live podcast. Uh, News people, um, and writers will do podcasts about writing and stuff like that. But the fiction podcasts, I think, are a different animal. There's a lot less of them. They and it because they take more time and energy to produce, right? You gotta write it, you've gotta record it, you've gotta add sound effects and music, give that value add, and then put it out there. So, um, there's 2 different levels of that too. There's the audio dramas that you've got full cast recordings, then you've got things like I do, and what Scott Sigler does too, where you are basically the guy reading the story. You're doing an audiobook, a short audiobook style story, but with the value add of sound effects and music, to sort of give it a little extra dimension, that audioscape dimension, so it comes out pretty cool. So, yeah, so I'm always looking for unconventional ways to promote the podcast, and so I think this is the next step here. After 3 years, I finally have my first anthology out. I've got the second anthology ready to go too. That one's gonna be called The Time Traveler's Conundrum and Other Stories. I know you like that story, York. And so that one will be coming out before the end of the year. By the time I get down to Miami for the book fair down there, hopefully I will have The 10th Ride done by then too, my next thriller novel. So those plans. I've talked about that before, but getting ready for this book show, I am going to have uh, 3 novels, one anthology, and 15 mini books to sell, and my brother's novel too as a hardcover. So I'll sell that one for like $25. Um, and I gotta get the website working so that it will automatically distribute the audiobook and ebooks. And I have to get the audiobook and ebook posted for Charlatans Conundrum. I gotta do that in the next 2 days. Yikes. Okay. Ugh. Plus I have to work. Well, fortunately, yeah, I'd have to teach too, but the teaching is pretty low key this week because they're in project mode. They're building projects, and I'm just kind of like supervising that stuff. I don't have to do a lot of lessons, so that'll give me extra time. All right. Well, it's getting late here. I hope this was helpful. I hope if you guys are interested in doing a fiction podcast like York and I have done. Um, so yeah, York does do he does do both the audio dramas and the audiobook style recordings. Yeah, I do recall that. Um, they're kind of like monologues too. Yours are, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I remember hearing you kinda do, like, a monologue about what's going on and things that have happened. Um, anyway, the point of this is that if you're a writer and you're looking for a way to promote yourself, the fiction podcast lane is still, I think, largely unexploited. There is room for that. I mean, I just got started and I'm in the top 400 on Apple, right? If you're doing a regular podcast, you'll be lucky to be in the top 10,000. 'Cause there are literally I mean, people are doing podcasts all the time, and most of them will stop after, like, 10, 20 episodes. They're like, "Oh, we're not getting anywhere with this. We didn't blow up immediately, so we're gonna stop." Consistency is the key. If you're gonna do something like this, commit to it. Do a story every other week. Um, but make sure that you've got some material on this. So I'm gonna be adding these interviews for writers who do, stories on my podcast, and so that's gonna be another episode to download, so that'll up my download. So right now, I'm trying to get, like, a story and a audiobook, part up every week, so that's 2 episodes a week, so that doubles my downloads, and that pushes my numbers up. So I'm hoping that that will, pay off here. Here, let me show you the other site here, Chartable. So this is where I'm tracking, some of my stuff here. So this is I don't know quite know how this works. Basically, you put this Chartable code in your podcast, and it tells you tracking things. So you can see like the last 5 episodes, how they're tracking here over the last few weeks and so forth. And oh, not bad. Look at that. Really good day. Part 22 jumped up to 150 downloads. Look at that. And I can see here my downloads have gone up by 19% over the last 30 days. And my reach has gone, I don't know what the reach is. I don't know what reach is, what that means. So you can see here the downloads, consumption. I don't know why the consumption is going down. I don't understand that either. This is Spotify. What does that mean? Spotify consumption. I'm not sure. Confirmed plays on Spotify. What is this? It's like spikes here to 24 to 22, and it's like weird little spikes here. I'm not sure what this is. I think maybe people finding it and then like listening to a whole bunch of stories all at once, putting it on play. But here you can see where I'm charting here. Let's see here. USA, they don't have the USA fiction here. Let me drill into this. Podcast charts. Where are the charts? Let's go to charts. Here we go. So here we go. USA fiction, 287. Oh, look at that. So on the chartable charts, I'm at 287. On Apple, not so much. Apple is a lot lower. Sometimes I'll see Apple listed on there. I don't see it now, but let's see what here. Let's see if I can drill in this and see what's going on there. So here, let me go ahead to last month. Okay. Oh, look at that. I am doing much better. So it was down to 350, and now I'm up to 287. Nice. All right. So I don't think you really get any traction until you're in the top 100. Then you can start maybe getting noticed. Then maybe advertisers will start looking at you. Top 10, you're done. Not done, but you've arrived. You are on the front page of the podcast apps, right? When they go to fiction, they will see you there and people will subscribe. And that's the goal here, right? I've got a 5-year plan for the podcast, right? To do this for 5 years and sort of and it's not I'm not going to stop after 5 years. My plan in 5 years is to like get it to a point where I have nailed all aspects of it. I've got the production down, which I'm very close to. I've got the narration down, which I'm still working on, but I think I'm growing a lot in that regard. And I've got the marketing down. And I've got, a big library of ancillary products to go along with it. Uh, I was thinking about there's places where you can get pillows printed up. I was going to put the logo on a pillow because it kind of seems fitting bedtime stories for insomniacs, right? Um, so get some other products and merchandise going and stuff like that, and also get a monthly guest author in, because the other side of that too is if you bring in a guest author, then that guest author is going to promote your podcast to all of their readers, and if they've got a big mailing list, you're going to be exposed to maybe hundreds or thousands more people that you normally wouldn't have heard about. They're going to listen to that writer's story on your podcast. Maybe they'll like it and subscribe and check out other things. Maybe you'll grab a few more listeners from that. So that's the plan with that. So over probably gets started on that in earnest in the next few months. And then I was hoping this year to start doing my live podcasts, where I take a story and I do a live read in front of an audience at like a library or a bookstore or something like that, with sound effects and music. I've got a soundboard that I bought, and I've got my own PA system that I picked up and stuff. So I've got all the hardware I need. I need to start putting that together, and that's probably something I'm going to be working on the podcast over the next few months in terms of like figuring out how to make that work. Because I have to bring in sounds from different places, so I have to probably program a bunch of different soundboards on the computer and on my actual soundboard here. Figure out how to do sound effects, how to fade things in and out, all of that kind of stuff. Probably going to be doing some live practical sound effects too. So like if I do footsteps, I'll have a pair of shoes. I'll just walk around like that. If I knock on the door, I'll just have some piece of wood. I'll just knock and things like that. So I'm going to have a lot of practical sound effects to go along with it. I'm going to start with one episode. I'm going to do the dog ears episode, and I'm going to write an expanded version into a novella. So plan there is book myself. I've got my local library. I've got contacts there. My mother was on the board for years, so I'm gonna do it there, try it out. I'm sure there'll be, like, maybe 10 or 20 people there at most, maybe 5 or 6. But, the goal is to just get out there and just start promoting myself in libraries. And then once I get into the libraries too, I'm gonna have all my books on hardcover on Ingram, and so I'll say, "Hey, you can either pay me to do a program for you because they all have budgets for this, right? They get grants from the state and other places to put on programs for their patrons. And if I can be one of those programs, awesome, right? I can go out there, I can get my hopefully get my book in that library, my books in that library, do my show in front of a live audience, sell some books to them, and then get some word of mouth going here, right? Hey, this is the guy who's you get, other libraries will talk to each other, I imagine. And so I'll start doing that live, and that's another thing too. Uh, yeah, I will do the pillow at some point. I have looked into it, check in pricing and stuff like that. I haven't decided if I'm gonna stock some in my shop and order them and have them in my closet and ship them to people, or if I'll do like an on-demand type of thing, like you do for t-shirts and mugs and hats and things like that. All right, so that's pretty cool. So I've got all that going, and it is after midnight already. I went a little bit longer than I usually do, but thanks for sticking around. Um, Tomorrow probably more of the same. Um, Although, if I get a chance, I'm gonna record, Dreams of Her. So I don't know if maybe well, no, I got so much to do for the book show. I'll probably just ramble. I'll probably just ramble tomorrow, but, we'll see how that goes. All right. Uh, Thanks to everybody who tunes in. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna sign off with the late night yawn, get you guys yawning as well. And see you tomorrow, midnight now Eastern time. If you haven't noticed the time change, I am doing this 11 o'clock Central Time, midnight Eastern time. So it still is a midnight podcast, still is a late owls, but it's a little bit earlier for me because I realized, I stay up till midnight, but till midnight, not after midnight. And doing it at midnight, I don't get to bed till like 1:30 or 2, and it's like, it's not quite enough. So midnight bedtime is good for me. So that's going to be midnight Eastern. That puts it at 9 o'clock on the West Coast, and you guys can figure out the time zones in between. And I'll try to be here every night. Um, I'm thinking maybe Jody or Christopher will be on here as well while they're in town. See if I can't convince them to make an appearance, dial in from their laptop or something. See if we can get that going. And hopefully we'll have some more fun. We'll talk about our experience at the show. We'll talk about selling books, all that kind of stuff. All right. Talk to you later.